Okay, let's go over the slope-intercept and the standard forms for graphing linear functions. In this assignment, suppose you're going to do some geocaching, and on this adventure, you're trying to find things that your friends have hidden. Your friend has provided you with some clues to help you discover that the discover what the cache contains and where it might be. So let's go ahead and follow the different clues here, kind of like a treasure hunt. Clue 1. The theme of the cache is superheroes. Carefully graph the 4 lines with the following equations on the coordinate plane below to see the shapes of the item. Now, we have right there, we have 4 different equations, A, B, C, D. Some are in the slope-intercept form, and some are not. And we can graph both of those really easy. So let's go ahead and graph the first one. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. Okay, and the slope is rise over run. Okay, so we have this information right here. We see that the y-intercept for A is plus 13. So we're going to go up to 13 and just put a dot right there. That is where A crosses the y-intercept. Now the slope is 2, but we need it to be a fraction. Well, if you ever have a whole number, you can just simply draw a line and put a 1, so it's 2 over 1. So that means we rise 2 and run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. And we see that we're getting a line out of this. So we're just going to draw this line. Okay, so now we have A. And I'm just going to go ahead and label that so we know that that's A. Okay, now I'm going to skip B for now and go to C because C is also in the slope-intercept form. So here, our y-intercept is also 13. So it's going to cross right there, only it goes -1, 2. So that negative can go on either number. Doesn't matter which one, as long as it's either only the top or the bottom. So I'm going to put it on the top, so we're going -1 over 2. -1 over 2. -1 over 2, and so on. And we see that we have a second line forming. And we're going to go ahead and draw that line. Okay, and this is B. Okay, so now we're done with A and C. Now the other ones, and I'm going to zoom in so it's a little easier to see these. The other ones are a little different. They're not in y-intercept form. So we either, one, have to solve for y by subtracting 2x from both sides and then dividing by -1, dividing by -1. And that works. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's probably what we're going to have to do in some of the situations. But there's other ways that we can do it. If we look at D, we can use the cover-up method. And what that means is if I cover up the x, okay, I have 2y equals -14. So if I divide both sides by 2, I have y equals -7. So that tells me that that crosses the y-axis at -7. So right down there, I'm going to go ahead and put a dot. That's called the cover-up method. Now if I cover up the y, we have x equals -14. So that tells me that that same line crosses the x-axis at -14. And so we're going to put a dot right at -14. And we see we have 2 dots now that we can graph. Okay, this only, and we'll label it D, This only works if it's in this format, the x and the y over here, and then just a number over here. So now D is done. Now we got to be careful here, because if we do that same thing here, we see, all right, negative y equals 17. If we divide both sides by negative 1, then we have y equals negative 17. So we put it right here, down here at negative 17. That's where it crosses the y-axis. But watch what happens when I cover the y. We have 2x equals 17. Well, now if we divide both sides by 2, that's 8.5. And sometimes you're going to start getting fractions if you do the cover-up method. But that's just simply saying if I go to 8, I can then go a half more, and I see right there, 8.5. Okay? And so we have 17 and 8.5. And that gets rid of this. Now let me explain what's happening with the cover-up method. If I have 2x plus 3y equals 12, well, if I solve for the slope or intercept, then all I'm saying is, okay, when x is 0, and if you think about it, when x is 0, that's the y-intercept. So if I plug in 0 for x, what's 2 times 0? Well, it's 0, leaving us with 3y equals 12. So that's the same thing as just covering that up and saying I plugged in 0 for that, what's left? Okay, same thing here. If I want to know the x-intercept, then that means the y is exactly 0. So that's where I plug in the 0 right there, and I'm left with 2x equals 12. So that's what I'm doing right there. So now I have these 2 points that I can draw a line, and I can say, all right, we've got those 2 lines, and that's B. This should be C, I'm sorry. Okay, so A, B, C, D. We have those 2, and it's graphed, and it makes a square. Good, that's clue number 1. So then we move on to clue number 2. And this one, it says the item of the cache is thin, and you can fold it or bend it. Just take the lines you graphed, intersect at 4 corners. The item also has 4 corners. The coordinates of the cache location corresponding to one of the points where the 4 lines intersect. Identify the coordinates of the points where each pair of the lines intersect. Write your answers in ordered pair form. So now we're going back to where we did, and we're looking for y equals 2x plus 13. Okay, and if we look, y equals 2x plus 13 is A. So I'm just going to write that with an A right there, just so I remember. And x plus 2y equals negative 14. X plus 2y equals negative 14. So that's D. So I want to know where A and D cross. So I look here, I look on my graph, and I say, okay, A is right here. D is right there. They cross right here. Okay? And if we look carefully, we can say, hey, what is that? That's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and negative 1, 2, 3. 8 and negative 3. So that's just negative 8, negative 3. Okay? So you can do that just by looking at them. Okay? Another way to do it is set them both equal to y. And it's important to use a ruler when doing that first way. But if you can't do it, or if your lines don't line up right, or it doesn't seem right, then you have y equals 2x plus 13. Now let's set that one equal to y. We have x plus 2y equals negative 14. We're just going to subtract x. We have 2y equals negative x minus 14. And we're going to divide by 2, divide by 2, and divide by 2. I'm just getting y by itself. So now we have y equals negative 1/2 x minus 7, because negative 14 divided by 2 is 7. So now I have both of these, and it says that y is equal to both of those at the same time. Well, I want to know where that is. What is x when y equals both of those? So then we set them both equal to each other. 2x plus 13 equals negative 1/2 x minus 7. Okay, so I set them equal to each other, and now all I need to do is start solving for x. So I'm going to subtract 13, and I'm left with 2x equals negative 1/2 x minus 20. And now I'm going to get rid of this half x, so I'm going to plus 1/2 x plus 1/2 x, and I'm left with 2.5 or 2.5 x equals negative 20. Okay, and when we do that, I'm just going to use a calculator on that one, because when you're dealing with the larger numbers or decimals or something, there's no need to stress over the numbers. Just find a calculator, and it doesn't have to be a fancy graphing one. And like I have just a regular calculator here, and I'm going to say, okay, I have 20 divided by 2.5 equals 8. But because I put in 20, see, my calculator didn't do the negative. I got to put the negative back on, so that becomes negative 8. So now we know x is always going to equal negative 8. So we plug that back in to one of the problems, or both of them, and we solve for y. Or we go through and we say, okay, that was when everything equaled y. Now set everything equal to x and plug it in. Or just simply plug in the negative 8. So right there, doesn't matter which one you plug into, because they're the same spot. They're the exact same location. And you go through and you solve. What is negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus, negative 16, I lost my train of thought here. So we're plugging in the negative 8. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 13 is negative 3. So that's the answer down there. So you see, we're getting the same answer, negative 8, negative 3, negative 8, negative 3. There's just two different ways of doing it. You can use the graph, or you can set both of them equal to y and set them equal to each other at that point, and then solve all the way down for y. Once you get y, you just plug it back in and solve, and that tells you right here. Okay. And I said solve for y, I meant solve for x. Anyway, so that's how you do clue number 2. So I'll let you do the rest of those. In clue number 3, the item in the cache has several pages that has the same shape as the geometric shape created by the intersecting lines. What is the shape of the item? Based on all clues, what do you think the item is? Okay, what is the shape of the item? Well, it's got 4 corners, so it's rectangle. Okay, could it be square? Maybe, if you want to go through and use distance formula and find that, sure. But don't overthink it, okay? Right now, it's a rectangle. A square is a rectangle, so it's just a rectangle. Well, what do we think it is? It has several pages. I don't know. You're going to have to think, what's rectangle with pages? Quite possibly a book, maybe. Clue 1 talked about superheroes. So what's a book about superheroes? Something like that, like a comic book or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's how you do this assignment. Hopefully this helps. If it doesn't, please send me an email, and I will be more than happy to help you further. But be specific about what you need help with.